CED committee. Let's begin with the roll.
Krosko? Krosko? Mahan,
Here.
Perales,
Here.
Barza, Foley.
Here,
Foley.
obviously. Obviously. I know that Councilmember Esparza will not be able to make it today. Before we get into the committee reports, I first want to acknowledge that this is Kim Wallish's last meeting with us as she retires from the city after 18 years of service. Thank you so much for putting San Jose on the map. You were the front line person in many public events, you had many opportunities to reach out and show our community how well we're doing in the past 18 years, and really showed how people can be successful and grow in the city of San Jose. So thank you for leading those efforts in that amount of time. We're going to miss you. So, but we appreciate all that you've given to us. I know this was your second career. Do you want to give us any insight as to your retirement, what you'd like to do in the next 2 days, next 6 months when you get a chance to relax after all of this?
No, thank you. It's been such a privilege to support this committee, which I've done for a very long time, and I believe it just really does such important work, important interdisciplinary work. And I also want to recognize Ed Moran, because Ed Moran and I were really the two people that supported this committee practically for the last decade. And I also want to then recognize that we're privileged to have Johnny Fan to be the council role for this committee, and that I'm so pleased that Rosalind Huey on April 5th will be the Deputy City Manager for Community and Economic Development and provide support to this committee, among other things. So you're in really good hands. I'm just going to take a gap year and do things that I love to do and want to do. But maybe the most important is we secured our building permit from PBCE for the remodel of our historic home on 15th Street. So that will literally start demolition in 1 week. So thank you, Rosalind and PBCE, everybody doing your part. And so really excited to continue to invest in the community and be here for a very long time. So thank you, Pam, and committee
Wow,
members.
congratulations on that. Does anyone on the council wish to offer any words, any thoughts? Raul, you look like you're getting ready to unmute.
Yes, sorry, I was gonna hit the raise hand, but I figured I'd just raise this hand. Well, and unfortunately, Kim, I won't be able to make a bigger send off, and so I wanted to just be able to say thank you for your service. This committee specifically, and as I've been able to serve on it, and your commitment really to our city, to economic development and growth, has really been tremendous, and your expertise has been extremely beneficial to us, and again, specifically for this committee. But on a bigger note, under a bigger umbrella, I know you've been a constituent of mine, and your involvement in our community has really been tremendous as well. It was always exciting seeing you out performing with the Brazilian drumming group, and being able to just see you in and about, really for your care for our community. It has been special, and I've really enjoyed working with you. So congratulations.
Thank you, Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Prowse. And I remember when we first met, it was across the street in my neighbor Ted Smith's house. So, and I had the privilege to be able to work with you. Thank you.
Councilmember Krosko.
Thank you. I've spoken with Kim a little bit, I'm sure some of you have as well, but I just wanted to publicly be able to really thank you for your dedication to the city of San Jose. And, I have to tell you, whenever I've had an issue, whenever needed to vet anything out, it's so great to be able to have our city staff be able to take those calls and walk us through it. But I just want to say you've been particularly interested in what's happening with our most vulnerable communities. I've seen your sincerity. I've seen you really take an interest in what I've been working on, what is really important to me, how I represent my constituents. You give me a heads up. You know, I know that you're looking forward to this next chapter. Who wouldn't be? But we're gonna miss you. And I want to thank you for all the work that you've been doing for the entire city of San Jose, of course. But especially I want to thank you for those times when you really are looking out for our district and seeing you out there at our district in different events, is really meaningful. It's very meaningful to be able to see you there. So I do hope that we continue to cross paths. I've enjoyed you personally and professionally, and wish you the best of luck. And I really do want to thank you for all of your input and all of your support during these last 6 years that I've been here.
Thank you very much, Magdalena. It's been terrific to see your leadership as well. And I do feel a special connection to East San Jose, and I really do care about the people in that community. So I'll continue to see you out there.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan.
I'll be very brief because I know, Kim, we've only, really had the last year or less to kind of interact, but I've learned a lot watching you on council even long before I decided to run, and I've just always appreciated your expertise, clear communication, and I think really just kind of, direct, honest, pragmatic approach to problem solving and laying out issues. And even just last month, your willingness to hop on Zoom before my first CED meeting and kind of walk me through what the committee does and the items was just really generous. It was just very generous of you, and just have a lot of respect for what you've done at the city. So wish you all the best in your next steps, and hope to be in touch.
Thank you, Councilmember, and you're a great addition. It'll be fun to see what you do with your leadership. So yeah, welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So let's move on. I would, first thing I'd like to request is a motion from the committee to move, I'd like to move item 3, which is the Economic Development Activities Report, up in the agenda to immediately following the consent calendar. And the reason for that is that last meeting, we had a long meeting, and Elizabeth was gracious enough to sit around for the entire meeting and then make her report. And by that time, I think we were tired. So what I'd like to do is move her to the start of the agenda, and I do need a motion to accomplish that. Would anyone care to make that motion?
Motion to do exactly what the chair just asked us to do.
And is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Do we need to poll the members? We do. Yes, could you call the roll?
Krosko,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Perales,
Aye.
Foley.
Aye. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. The next 2 items are items on our work plan. The first one is council policy priority number 1, local hiring. And the second one is real estate services audit. They're both part of our work plan. They were to be discussed today, but we're requesting that they be deferred to April 26th and May 24th respectively. So we need a motion to approve that as well. Councilmember Mahan.
Just a question, Chair. Can you just tell us a little more about why we're deferring them? I mean, they're both obviously very important topics, and I'm interested in both. Can you tell us a little more about why we need to defer them?
I'm happy to jump in if you like, Chair.
Thank you, please.
Yeah, on the council policy priority number 1, I mean, it's policy priority number 1, so we had made some substantial progress on it. We, meaning Public Works, Office of Equality Assurance. But I think, as you know, with COVID this last year, they've had to prioritize implementation of the city's sick leave ordinance, right, including triaging all the questions and sorting through the claims. So they're just asking for another month to be able to have enough substance on their progress report that they'll be making. The second one, the real estate services audit, this was just a request from Joe Royce, the auditor. Again, they just need a little bit more time, and other priorities have come up, and there's a little additional work that they want to do.
And I can just chime in and add there, if it's okay, Kim, that.
Joe's here. Sorry, hi, Joe.
Oh, then Joe will say, there you go.
Yeah, so this was actually originally for next week, or I'm sorry, next month's CED. We're just pushing it back a month again, as Kim mentioned. We just have additional analyses and some of the data we're looking at.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Yeah, helpful to have that context. So I'll go ahead and move that we defer items 1 and 2 to the recommended date in the agenda.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Then please call the roll.
Krosko,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Perales,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye. Next is thank you for agreeing to move up the report from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, would you care to offer us the Economic Development Activities Report?
The right screen share, I will be with you. I don't know why I keep getting this screen share. I've been having computer problems today, so that may be part of it. Bear with me, I do apologize.
Elizabeth, I think it's a Zoom thing because every call I've been on this week have had trouble with Zoom sharing or screen sharing.
It's not working. I am very sure that this is the one that I'm clicking on. Mike, can you help me at all? Could you
Sure,
try
I can
it?
go ahead and share the screen. Hang on just a second.
Thank you.
And hi, this is Tony, the city clerk. There was a large update to Zoom software this week. So for tomorrow's council meeting, you guys might want to go in and update your software.
Mike has done it. Mike can do anything. That's wonderful. Thank you, Mike. And Councilmember Foley, Chair, I do appreciate your courtesy. It was not a hardship at all to listen to your deliberations last month. Always happy to do it. So, but I thank you very much for your consideration. Committee and Chair, I'm Elizabeth Handler. I'm the Public Information Manager for the Office of Economic Development. The SJ Economy News for this month covers mostly support items for our small businesses, but also some slightly more fun things as well. So we'll start with the support items. And the first item is the American Rescue Plan, which is President Biden's first support rescue stimulus plan for helping the country through COVID, has allocated a $28.6 billion specifically in grants, which is so critical for our restaurants and bars and other food service and hospitality businesses. So this is something that the details have not been promoted yet, but we wanted to get the word out as quickly as we could so that the really hammered hospitality sector in our city could know that there is some hope on the horizon. And it is grants, which are not repayable, which is so important. So that was the first and best piece of good news that we could offer this month. Next one, please, Mike. The second really important one is the Shuttered Venues Grant. And this is for all those performance venues and the operators of performing arts kinds of businesses who have basically been out of business for more than a year now. And again, these are going to be grants. These, however, are coming from last year's December 20th stimulus plan that came out, but they are opening up for another $15 billion in grants. And we've been holding a couple of webinars now to support this. And we're very pleased that this important part of our community is also going to get some help. Okay, next one is partnership that Facebook and our Work to Future folks did in order to create a very interesting paid internship opportunity for youth in the community. And this is really youth. These are high school kids. They don't have to have graduated from high school, but Facebook partners with them and small businesses in the community so that the interns work with the small businesses to create an online digital presence for the small businesses. So it's a lovely win-win-win. This was kicked off about 2.5 weeks ago, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing what comes from that. We're very happy about that. Okay, next one. Sole proprietors and gig workers now are eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program loans that are now in their third round, I guess. But they are now able to apply for larger loans to supplement the costs that have been imposed on them by the COVID pandemic and the closures. Again, we have been doing and will continue to do webinars on the subject. And as you all know, we went back into the red tier in early March, which was good news for those businesses who were able to, again, put into operations some of their money-making opportunities. And we have been posting the news of this on our website as well as through our webinars. And you can see the blog post in all 5 languages now on our website, the SJ Economy News COVID information website. Okay, and now on to the lighter items on the agenda. We had St. Patrick's Day, and carrying on the tradition of lighting up facades and of course activating our downtown as much as we possibly can. Lage Zalalic, our downtown manager, and the Downtown Association really rolled it out in bright green this St. Patrick's Day with a lot of fun events, an amazing arch with a bagpipe and drum band that came through. And it drives me crazy. They weren't wearing masks, but I'll get over it. And it was obviously an extremely festive moment in San Pedro Square. And there were also buildings lit up with shamrocks and other festive lights for that period. And then the next one is also colored green. And oh, it's not there. But just so you know, the rotunda was lit up. The rotunda and City Hall were lit up in green. Oh, there it is. I skipped over it. For St. Patrick's Day. And that was part of our Sister City program with the City of Dublin, which has been established for a long time. And many of our council members have been on the trips or in the events when the mayor and his representatives were over here. So we were happy to be able to show the green for our Sister City program. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. I was wearing my green on St. Patrick's Day as Foley and Irish, and I know Councilmember Perales shares that heritage as well. Turning to the members of the public, this is an opportunity for public comment, specifically addressing this item, the Economic Development Report. Starting with Paul Soto. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Council. On the March 17th, I was grieving the loss of my mother. She died in San Jose, March 17th of 1999. At that same time, I was witnessing the ascendancy of a Chicano to the highest office that the law enforcement can have, which is Chief of Police Mata. I was there as well. And I can honestly say that watching Chief Mata accept the nomination of the council mitigated much of the pain that I experienced on March 17th. With respect to the business, I'm glad that the businesses get grants and the government is able to sustain them and their viability in the city. They are sustained, that they are taken care of. However, when I walk downtown, I really don't see myself reflected downtown. The complexion, the languages, the culture of San Jose is becoming very unidentifiable. I mean, extremely unidentifiable. And that concerns me, that worries me, because what I'm seeing now is that there's a connection between the viability of the businesses and dealing with the homeless problem, you know, in which it's really not a problem, because we can tell now, because of the influx of billions and billions of dollars into San Jose, that actually poverty is created. Poverty is not a moral failure. It's not a character flaw. It's actually being created. And at the same time that poverty is being created, we are shunning and actually stating openly that people that are experiencing homelessness on the streets is an impediment to business. And so now there's this like subtle vilification of people that are experiencing poverty that is actually created, and saying that they are getting in the way of the viability of the businesses downtown. And so while I respect the fact that people have to make money, I also respect the fact that human beings have a right to live.
Thank you, Mr. Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beckman here. Thanks for the words of Paul Soto. For myself, a procedural question, I guess as always. When you approved to defer work plan items, you didn't give the chance for public comment. And there is Brown Act ideas that if items have not been before a public body before, they have to have public comment if they're deferred. So I don't know. I mean, however you can learn to work it in the future. It's an age-old issue that we go back and forth with in San Jose, and I just thought I would make things clear for its process at this time. Interestingly, for this item, you know, I wanted to comment on the previous work plan that I think can fit in to this economic agenda item you talked about today for downtown area issues. You know, I was really impressed that you know, the jobs issues, finding jobs issues, it was so high on the list of your priorities and of the priority work session a few weeks ago. And you know, I just wanted to, it was a very interesting session of a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to thank yourselves for it, and a reminder that with all the categories, with all the ideas, you know, 20 plus projects that you offered, there was a real easy way to see that things could be grouped in about 4 or 5 different groups, and to work in those all at once. I hope you can be reminded of that and want to do that, and the enthusiasm there can be to do that. I think that can accomplish a lot, and I just wanted to remind yourselves of good practices and good projects and good work. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Soto, I'm sorry for your loss. My dad died in 2020, so I know that pain never actually goes away. Turning to council, Councilmember Mahan.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the update. I was just curious for the program that is a partnership between Facebook, the city, and Work to Future. How do small businesses apply to be part of that program, or what's the, and I guess the same goes for young people who could be a part of it as well. As I didn't notice any links in the attachment.
No, unfortunately, the expiration period for the sign-on for that has already been and gone and passed.
Okay.
But we're hoping that they may want to do some more rounds. So we will try, you know, the newsletter is always kind of a month after the fact. So our blog posted and our e-blasts are the way that we are going to try to get this out, and also the flash report. So we hope next time it comes up, we'll be on it and we can really promote it to the business community.
And Elizabeth always sends to your council, to you and the council office.
Okay, great. I probably missed it the first time, but anyway, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Is there a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, good. Thank you. I just had a couple of comments. I'm Elizabeth. I wasn't aware of that the PPP loans applies to gig workers. That's really good information, and I'm assuming the window is still open to apply for those.
Through the
Okay.
31st, up through the 31st.
31st of March. Oh, I better get that
Yes.
out because I wasn't aware of that, and that's huge because we have so many people benefiting from or who are struggling and making ends meet through the gig economy by driving for DoorDash and others. So that's really good news. And I'm also really happy to hear about the shuttered venue grants, that those are grants and not loans. The
Yes.
performing arts have taken such a hit, and I don't know when they will recover. I don't know when we'll be able to go back to a theater and see live performances. Personally, that's one of I'm a supporter of live performances, and I'm really missing that opportunity. I'm kind of getting tired of sitting home and watching TV over and over again to entertain myself. So I appreciate that, and I know that with the vaccines and there's hope and some belief that we'll be able to get back in to see shows soon, at least summertime or maybe later. So that was really good to hear because those artists are really, really struggling. All right, with that, let's, with no other comments, let's vote.
Krosko,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye. Thank you. And the next item is a combination of the citywide residential anti-displacement strategy and city policy priority number 11, which is anti-displacement. They go together. So we will have one presentation followed by public comments, and then we'll go back to council for any council questions or comments. With that, Reagan, are you making this presentation?
Thank you, council member. Good afternoon, Reagan Henninger with the Housing Department. I'm here with Kristen Clements, who is our division manager with the department overseeing our policy work. And I'm also here with Chris Alexander from the city attorney's office. Next slide. So the housing department was before city council last September when our anti-displacement strategy was approved. And there were 3 priority recommendations that you see here. And then the 4th was added by council in January, and that is adding a person with lived experience to our housing commission. So we're gonna today just overview very briefly our progress on these priorities. Next slide. So the first priority for the housing department was an equitable COVID response. And since September, this work has really been focused on advocacy at the federal and state levels for eviction moratoriums and local moratoriums on rent increases. And really, we have been working on the implementation of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that has launched at the state and will soon launch locally and will be before council tomorrow. Next slide. So we have completed some analysis of data regarding evictions. And I think this data supports really the hope that eviction moratoriums and court closures have resulted in fewer evictions. While notices to renters for non-payment of rent increased significantly in the fall, filings for evictions or what's called unlawful detainers have been low. And the sharp increases in notices for non-payment of rent in the fall involved tenants who were receiving 2 notices, one for the period that covered the city's moratorium and one for the state's. And then unlawful detainers from March 2020 to January 2021 The averages were down to 12 per month pre-COVID and 13 per month during COVID. And so what I take away is that, again, you know, eviction moratoriums do have an important impact. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, who's going to walk you through the other priorities.
Thanks, Reagan. As you may remember, tenant preferences allow managers of affordable housing to prioritize certain types of applicants for a percentage of affordable apartments that are otherwise available to the general public. And we've been working on 2 preferences to help low-income residents to stay in San Jose and avoid displacement. Neighborhood was part of the anti-displacement strategy, and then the referral from council separately, the anti-displacement tenant preference, we're folding into this, into this work and reporting on them jointly now, because the work is very consistent and similar for both preferences. So the drivers of tenant preferences, it's largely a fair housing law question, what you can do and can't do. And then we're working with the State Department of Housing and Community Development to get their approval for projects that they provide financing for. And that is a significant process. So in the last 6 months, we've met with state HCD 2 times, and they've refined what they'd like to see jurisdictions do. It's a lot of data analysis, and we're working closely with the city attorney's office on that. And then we've been very busy working with the IGR team and other partners, and we created a bill to address a problem that was identified, that we couldn't easily use tax credits and bond financing and use anti-displacement tenant preferences, because that carve out in law had not yet been made so that people felt like you could rely on that. And so Senator Dave Cortese from our area is now the bill author. And besides the city as sponsor, we have 2 other sponsors signed on, Somos Mayfair, and then the Housing Action Coalition in San Francisco. So that has kept us very busy. We've got meetings every week, and the bill is going to go to committee on the 15th of April, and we're going to testify there and try to help make the use of these preferences more reliable, you know, for this population. So our hope for the HCD work is to do the data analysis, get their guidance, and get sign off on both preferences. And then our hope is to change our tools to get the appropriate level of data that HCD would like us to collect long-term from people who live in affordable housing that our asset management team collects. And then, you know, with hopes of bringing an HCD approved couple of preferences to council by early next year. And then next year would involve rollouts and education. So that's our second biggest priority. And the third in the anti-displacement plan was for the community opportunity to purchase. We're calling it COPA for short. Just a reminder, it's a preservation strategy for buildings, probably small buildings, that already exist, that are not restricted affordable. And the idea is to create funding for preservation to acquire and potentially rehab for community-oriented organizations, nonprofits. In order to do a good COPA program, you'd have to have targeted city funding, appropriate for preservation, and you'd need to have developers that want to do this work, which is pretty low profit and often kind of place-based. Because of market opportunities and because of the ongoing COVID pressures, we are trying to accelerate this work on the timeline for this, just because we think some buildings are going to be going up for sale. And so we're going to be trying to work harder on getting this to move. And you'll see the timeline at the end. So in the last 6 months, we've been solidifying and finalizing, looking at other cities' programs. We put out an RFP, and we've hired a consultant to help us facilitate a anti-displacement working group, which is going to be large, from all kinds of organizations that would like to discuss ongoing different strategies and topics on anti-displacement, but we want to focus their work first on designing COPA together. And then we'll have a little small technical team as well, and they'll report back and forth between the two. So we spent a lot of time right now kind of onboarding the consultant and getting the whole year mapped out as to what we need to cover in order to bring COPA forward. And we're scheduling stakeholder interviews right now and intending to launch the working group next month. So looking forward for the next 6 months, the equitable COVID response, as you read about in the memo, as Reagan's described, really right now we're all about the fourth bullet, the launching of the emergency rental assistance program. And we're going to be getting back survey results from tenants and from small landlords to see what their needs are and make sure that the connections are being made so that they can access the resources that are available through the state and through the city and county with the ERAP program. And we're going to be figuring out how to gauge success better and track data better and continue to try to make sure that voices of the community are reflected in the strategies that the city's moving forward, working with the EOC partners. And for tenant preferences, as I said, we're going to be working a lot on the city-sponsored bill, putting together the HCD required data and analysis, and then moving forward with a draft ordinance. And for COPA, it's about the stakeholder meetings, talking to people, getting feedback, and making sure that we craft something that people are educated about and bought into, why it might look like it does. And then finally, that last subject there, this is the referral that came to us from council in January. Well, we were going to look at commission composition anyway and who's represented on 2 commissions, housing and community development and neighborhoods. The council's asked us to go ahead and accelerate and then put on to the Housing and Community Development Commission, which rolls up under housing, a seat with somebody who has lived experience in homelessness, which we think is a good idea. And so that kind of kicks off the commission work that we are going to do anyway under number 4 priority. So we are going to be talking to commissioners and figuring out what compensation might be needed for commissioners in general who are lower income, and then determining what amendments need to be done to the municipal code. So it's kind of stage 1 of our work there. And I think with that, we're open for any questions.
Oh, Council Chair Foley.
Chair Foley, yeah, you're muted.
Whoa, that never happens. I will note before I go to the members of the public that if this is approved today, the report accepted and move forward, that it will come to council next week, March 30th. Is that still the plan? Okay. So with that, let's go to members of the public. Paul Soto.
Yes, thank you. Historically, this country has a history of displacement, starting with the Trail of Tears via Andrew Jackson in 1832. Then we had Manifest Destiny that was started with Thomas Fallon's planting of the American flag here in San Jose in 1846. What flowed from that was the displacement of the Chinese populations with the Chinese Exclusionary Act. Then we had the Mexicans that were deported back in the 30s when they were blamed via President Hoover for the Depression. Then we had the Bracero program. They brought Mexicans back from Mexico 10 years later. And and now we're having an additional displacement. And so there's a history of displacement of native populations, because all of a sudden what happens is the native population becomes inconvenient to white Anglo-rich families that actually derived their wealth from that displacement. And this is a critical point because redlining needs to be confronted. The historical injustices, be they economic, social, and locational, that those have never been contended with. And so while I really like the tenant preference laws and the direction that those are going, I don't think they go far enough. I think redlining and all of the historical, tentacled, generational consequences of the redlining that we all know has happened here in San Jose, that I think that needs to be explicitly discussed with respect to these anti-displacement programs. Because without that, and this person that you're going to have that's going to be placed on this commission, they need to be versed in that. They need to be versed in economics, sociology, psychology, redlining. They need to be know the historical injustices that have happened here in San Jose in order for that person to have any efficacy. So with respect to that, go.
Thank you, Mr. Beekman.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beckman here. We are learning a lot about the different ways rent forgiveness can be very workable for both tenants and owners, and that no one will get hurt. The concept of subsidy is starting to become a more regular term in the era of COVID-19 we are living in, with large amounts of money being handed out at the federal level, along with developing new state financing programs and tax incentives and how to address things in this era of COVID-19. To also note, we simply may have to address possible natural disasters in the SF Bay area in the next 5 to 10 years as well. I hope my words will be improving to just simply describe our choices without being overly forceful at this time, how to make clear some concepts of decent subsidy practices and processes for the future of San Jose in this time of COVID-19, and how we can choose to not use the subsidy process if we don't want to as well. But the concept is to simply not hurt each other at this time. As I'm trying to learn, everyday people can get hurt and fall through the cracks with policy making, however its good intentions may be. When we should be clear that at the local level, COVID-19 is simply not the fault of everyday people, and that we should not be held to its debt burden issues. The era of COVID-19 has exacerbated the division between the haves and the have-nots. The stock market may be an incredible run this year, while the have-nots may be in a more desperate state than in previous years. I hope we consider San Jose wants to work a subsidy system that can ask higher income people to simply pay a larger share, and for lower income people to not have to pay any sort of rate increases at all at this time, and that we can rely on the subsidy process to more fully make up the differences. This is my feelings. It is a way that we can work for owners to get tax breaks and rent forgiveness for other people, lower income people. Thank you.
Turning to council, Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, staff, for the update on this. My first question is really just in regards to the work ahead. So what you presented looks like some work over the next 6 months. And we, obviously we did still prioritize this fairly high, but it did not make it to the work plan for this coming year as far as the top 2 items that we prioritized. So just kind of curious what that might look like in regards to the work over this next 6 months. Are we still on track in that regard? Is there anything that we should be expecting or not expecting because this did not necessarily make the work plan for this coming year?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think what you saw over the the 6 months on that last slide is the work we plan on finishing this next fiscal year. A lot of it is driven by the grant and the fellow we have with Partnership for the Bay's Future. So we do have objectives that we said we would do. And so that work will continue. Our fellow is here. Asen has joined us. And
Hi,
so
everyone.
really, again, I think what you saw on that last slide is what we plan to continue. And if you remember, the body of our displacement work was quite large. There was a number of recommendations, and those are backburnered, and we're just really zeroing in on what we said we would do in that last slide.
And I'll
Okay.
just,
Oh yeah, go ahead, Asen.
yeah, and I'll just add, sort of, at least as far as I'm concerned, my fellowship ends in March 2022, and I'm hoping to at least make pretty significant progress on all three of the priorities that I have in front of me. I do think that we have a really good but definitely aggressive timeline on the community opportunity to purchase and the tenant preference policies. There are some things that we're hoping that the state will help us on as far as the timeline is concerned. But obviously, I won't be spontaneously, disappearing after March 2022. But at least the hope is that we're mostly there by then.
Okay, great, thank you. And when does this grant expire?
The
Yes.
challenge grant, it's March 2022.
Right.
March of 2022.
2-year position. And we're lucky enough to have Asen, who actually was one of our community members as we did the city with community members report, where we were all kind of co-equals. That gave us a lot of the ideas and research that we then pulled into our city report and kind of rethought what's the city's role and what should the city drive on. So we're really lucky that it was Asen that ended up wanting to be here with us for 2 years to do this work. He's the perfect person.
I would agree. I'm aware of Asen's work out in the community and his experience, and so and I had known that he had joined our team. I wasn't aware it was under this fashion and under this grant. So it's now that's completely clear to me, and so I am appreciative that we have you on the team, Asen, doing this work. In regards to the adding a seat to the Housing and Community Development Commission with a commissioner with lived experience, just want to make sure that we are, setting this person up for success. And so, indeed, I think we want to ensure it's somebody that does have, a good amount of knowledge and understanding, and then secondly, that we're there to ensure that they are successful in, if they don't have experience, for instance, in the format of commissions or committees and government reports and whatnot, that we can provide them that training and be able to get them up to speed for that. And so happy to hear back from staff.
Yeah, thanks for that point. I think we completely agree, and that person, I think, as you said, will have to be supported on a number of levels. I mean, there's the technology piece, right? Making sure that they can Zoom and that they're able to get packets, and there's that. But then there's I think the support of just what does this commission do, and how does it relate to the city and policy making as a whole. So I think there'll be some mentorship and maybe an opportunity to pair this individual with another commissioner, whether it's another housing commissioner or maybe another, I think it could even be a commissioner on another commission that's able to provide some context and support and mentoring.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan.
Thanks, and thanks for the report. I was really interested in the COPA concept, and I was just curious how other jurisdictions that have implemented it have funded it, and if there's anything else we should kind of be aware of at this stage as we're exploring it.
Yeah, thanks. I'll let Kristen or Asen take that one.
I'll let Ethan take that because he's been doing the in-depth research with the other cities.
And thank you so much, Councilmember, for the question. So for COPA, the only city that has a community opportunity to purchase, which is slightly different from the tenant opportunity to purchase, as you know, is San Francisco. And San Francisco has paired it with their small site acquisition program. That program is funded at about $25 million a year currently, but all of that money does not go into COPA acquisitions. It goes into a variety of different small site acquisitions throughout the city.
And it's, is it just out of, thank you, by the way, and welcome to the team, Mason. Good to know you're here.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Also familiar with your great work. The 25 million in San Francisco, is that just out of the general fund, or is there a particular funding mechanism that we're looking at?
It's out of the general fund.
Okay.
It's not dedicated funding from any specific source.
Got it. Okay, cool.
If I could clarify too, the San Francisco Accelerator Fund is actually a separate funding organization. The city provided a lot of seed money to it, but it's layered with other sources. And then it focuses on acquisition, and then the city provides the permanent takeout. And so the acquisition fund and the city, with its regular notices of funding availability, work hand in hand as to which projects to finance. So there has to be that ongoing perm money, and there has to be the upfront quick acquisition dollars, acquisition rehab dollars as well. And so that's one of the challenges, is that the upfront money with very quick closing requirements with kind of a high volume of smaller projects, it lends itself to a separate organization kind of better than a public agency, which is a little slower and more transparent.
Interesting. And then, and forgive me if I'm not thinking about this correctly, but is there an opportunity then in those properties for the residents to, over time, build an equity position and maybe become owners? And is there any notion of like a revolving fund where that money could then go back into to a public fund to buy more properties, or how is that structured?
I can comment on that. We are trying to think through how to accomplish there are two basic objectives. One is to have units stay affordable for a long time and not have rents kind of escalate quickly, and to kind of tamp down that basic market behavior.
Yep.
And then second is to figure out how the residents can grow assets over time. And San Jose doesn't have tenant co-ops already formed that could act together and make decisions at this time. So we're trying to figure out how we can build that into the program, where it could be a later opportunity for them to purchase from an initial purchaser that's the nonprofit partner. So trying to figure that out with some other smart people. But that is one of the main reasons that we're doing this work, right? Which is to help people accumulate assets over the long term.
Yeah, that sounds great. Cool. Well, I'm really interested in that and look forward to learning more as you all investigate further. And then the other set of questions I had was around the rental assistance program, and just wanted to, as a reminder, understand the scale. I saw some numbers in the report related to the amount of outreach, and I saw the mailed postcards was 14 or 15,000, which seems like a great tactic. I know there's digital outreach and other tools we're using to reach the community. And I also saw the $25 million number in there for rent relief. Could you give us, to the extent possible, a sense of the scale of the number of people and the estimated dollars that would be needed to keep everyone in their apartments in San Jose who are at risk of displacement from COVID specifically? I mean, I'm just curious as a fraction of the crisis where we're at.
Sure, thanks for the question. It's a good one. So I believe we have the exact number in our memo that is before council tomorrow on the emergency rental assistance program. I want to say Policy Link did some numbers, and just based on the number of ELI households in San Jose, which is somewhere over 60,000. And I think Their total of what is needed was over 80 million to keep people housed. The 25 million figure you that was in our report was what we had funded from city funds, from our CARES Act funding, from our home dollars, HALA. So there's new funds from the Treasury and the state. We chose the hybrid model of back in February at council. So that means that the state will implement the funding for San Jose and Santa Clara County. And we, the city of San Jose, will implement funds that we received directly from the Treasury. And the focus of our local program is really on ELI households, and particularly ELI households that are in those COVID impacted zip codes. And the outreach there, we are enlisting, similarly to what we did in our earlier rental assistance program in COVID, was work with, we had over 70 grassroots partners who were able to work with us on educating and helping people enroll in that emergency rental assistance program. We saw a very large number of folks in the first program who either didn't have a traditional lease agreement and or they didn't have the technology to access rental assistance application forms online and needed assistance with that. And so that's really our target with the local program.
Thanks. Yeah, that's really interesting. And in terms of, do you think it's I'm sure they're both challenges, serious challenges, but is the shortfall on the dollars front a bigger barrier right now, or is it finding people, making sure they're aware and making sure they have the pathway to applying that's the bigger? It sounded to me like maybe that latter item right now was the bigger barrier.
I feel like right now it's the latter. It's really reaching those folks who don't have access to technology, who may not speak English, they may not be sort of on mainstream media to even understand or know that there's rental assistance available.
Right.
And so that's again, really our focus of our local program is working with these grassroots neighborhood organizations who are doing work in their communities, so that there's a comfort level. If they're receiving assistance at an organization that they're comfortable with, we don't want to break that. We just want to facilitate.
Right. Okay, well, thank you for the update and your important work on this. I look forward to continuing to keep abreast of what's going on. Obviously, one of the most important challenges facing our community right now. So thank you.
Thank you. And tomorrow at the council meeting, we will be discussing those questions in great detail, I'm sure, regarding rental assistance and how that program, that hybrid program, is going to be rolled out, since it's a lot of information and it's complicated. So I look forward to the presentation tomorrow. Councilmember Krosko. You're good? No, there you go.
No, I couldn't unmute myself. A year later, and I almost hung up on you guys. So first of all, I'm so glad that Asen is here, because I think that his reputation precedes him, and so we all know about your good work. But also, I had an opportunity to just get to know you through the work that we did with the policy link, and I think that we can't ignore the good work and all the time and effort and all the great brains that went into all of the policy link work that took place. And so I think that we need to keep bringing back that document one way or the other. And I'm not sure where that where that venue would be, but too much work went into it, not to keep refreshing and at least referencing it. And so that's my first point. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. I don't know if that should go to NSC, or it should come here to this council, or it should be brought up to the entire council for reference once a quarter, once a year. But as we're looking at recovery and resilience and how we're going to support our families, I think that this is really the time to look at that fine work that was done. I mean, we were going all over the country trying to talk to individuals to see what we could do to really support our families and our communities. And so I just don't want that body of work to disappear. And we have some great council members now that are brand new that I think would really benefit from seeing that work. They've never seen it. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if you want to just comment on that before I move on.
Yeah, thank you for that, council member. We're redesigning our anti-displacement webpage, so it's going to get ready for more information to be added to it. But that's a really good point that we can highlight that in the design of the new page. So it'll be the city strategy, but also the community report. And you sound just like Jackie, our director. We actually had the same idea the other day, which is that we have to go back through the report and look at all those strategies as we're thinking about how to get to recovery, because there are so many good thoughts from so many places in there, and they're going to jump out at us differently right now than they would have a year ago. So I'm glad that you said that, because we were thinking exactly along the same lines.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Reagan.
Thanks. I would also add, as we're forming this anti-displacement work group, which, as Kristen noted, will be a large group that has a number of stakeholders represented. I think we really want to have the voices that contributed to that body of work, that first report, also represented on this anti-displacement work group, so that they raise those same issues and same ideas in this group as well, which will be, again, that group that is now implementing the work plan.
Exactly. And that working group, it's going to be large. And we've learned from other cities that people who want to be there and do this work over time, those are the ones who will keep coming. And we want to focus first on thinking about COPA, but really we're trying to kick off something that is going to be sustainable and provide that community voice in a regular format. But it's not just the community voice, it's going to be different kinds of people talking to each other over time, which really has not happened before. So that's what we've heard from other communities that actually made progress over many years on strategies where business community talked to the community and came up with things that they couldn't have come up with, either one of them working alone.
Yeah, and again, I think it would be great to even get those reports out to our new council members, just so that they have a frame of reference and they know what we're talking about, because it was really, in my opinion, not just because I happen to have sat on it, but because I got to witness it firsthand in terms of the kind of work and energy that went into it. And then even the challenges that are happening all over the country. It's, we sometimes think that it's just happening in our own backyard, but it's happening everywhere. Communities are being displaced in mass, and people are being gentrified, and so we need to figure out, how do you stop the bleeding? What out of the box thinking do we really truly have to do, because it's happening, and we really have to start to really put in motion ways of keeping people in their communities. because it's still not happening. You know, some things are moving very slowly. They're happening, but they're moving slowly. By the time they come to fruition, you know, we've lost, you know, another 100 households of people who really enriched our communities, and good for them if they found another place. But you know, we really don't realize the impact of the loss of those families to our communities in terms of what they contribute. You know, the saying, what is the saying? You don't know what you had until it's gone. You know, and our families just add so much to our communities in terms of just everything that they bring. It enriches and it adds so much depth to a city. And you know, I watch with a lot of heartache how my district itself is being transformed. You know, it's heartbreaking to see. You know, we send out mail for those people who we know don't necessarily get it through our electronic platforms, and we get stacks now that are returned to us that we didn't get before. And so we always had some that were coming back. Now it's like this, you know, oh, you can't see me, you know, so it was like this. Now, you know, it's like stacks of returned mail. And so, you know, you know, as much as I think that I'm connected to my community, I can't know who lives in every door or what's happening. But when I see that coming back, it's a painful reminder of what I think is happening. So I wanted to say that. So a couple of, the last thing I'm going to add is I truly believe that we have to figure out how we build our families' assets and their own portfolio. If we don't do something about creating personal wealth, then anti-displacement is always going to be the issue of the day, right? Because no matter where you put people, no matter how many buildings you build, they're always beholden, and they're always they're like sitting ducks waiting to see when it's going to happen again. And this is the kind of market that, you know, I think Councilmember Foley could probably speak better to this, but I keep track of the real estate trends also throughout the country, but especially throughout California. And there's only a few areas in California that are not insane, but by far our area, even during COVID, the east side of San Jose during COVID, it's shocking when I speak to people from throughout the state or other parts in the country, and they see what they can buy on the east side of San Jose, which, by the way, is notoriously smaller than most houses in the rest of the city, that need a lot of TLC, that need you know, quite a bit of upgrading if you want those modern amenities. The price tag is astounding. It's astounding, but it's relatively, you know, more affordable than the rest of the city. So my point is that we're living with a reality and a fact that is unescapable. It's expensive, probably the most expensive areas in California, you know, barring the Beverly Hills. But for the common folk, this is the most expensive area, not just in housing and, you know, milk, eggs, bread. You know, I rather, you know, send my money to Modesto and have them bring it over here, you know, for my friends who live out there, because it's so costly. And so if we don't figure out how to build people's personal portfolio, or the city's portfolio, so that we can keep their rents, you know, we can control that, then we're constantly going to be dealing with this issue. It's a never ending situation, because you can't control when people want to sell their homes to the highest bidder. And then they, you know, they displace our renters, their tenants. It's free market. They can do whatever they want with their property. But if they own their property and they live in their property, it's more likely that they'll stay in their property. Or if the city owns property and we keep them in something that's affordable, I know it's an artificial, control of the market, but at least we're controlling for those families that really need that assistance. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents. I know we're going to have a much lengthier discussion when it goes to council, so I'll wait to have that conversation. I just want to make sure that our council members do have all of the reports in the presentation that we've done on Policy Link, so that they have some frame of reference as to the work that we've done, and maybe it's helpful to them as well in moving forward.
Thank you for that recommendation. I think that's a good idea to get access to the Policy Link report for all of us, and not just those on this committee, but all of the council members. And Councilmember Krosko, I really appreciate your focus on owning real estate as a way to build wealth. For too long, that wasn't able to happen for certain folks. For people, because of redlining and discrimination and racist policies throughout this country, building wealth through and owning your own home wasn't as easy for some folks as it was for others. So I truly appreciate that. I think the COPA program is a good opportunity. So if we can create a program where tenants are building equity in the property that they're living in, that's really important and gives them a step up into establishing their own asset, their own controlling their own destiny. We want to own our own property because we control our own destiny once we have that property. So if we can do that through purchasing small rental property units, then we should do that, and we need to make that happen. Of course, the devil will be in the detail, and I know it's complicated on how we're going to get there, but being able to establish equity and ownership for tenants is really, really important. So I look forward to hearing more about that down the line when we discuss it in detail on the 30th, or unless you have any additional information you'd like to share on the COPA program.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. And the other thing is that I agree with Councilmember Perales regarding setting up the individual with the lived experience for success. We don't want to set them up for failure, so we need to make sure that they have all the tools that they need, starting with the technology or access to the printed materials. However we get them the materials will be really important, and then to have some sort of knowledge base and training that can help them understand what the HCDC committee will do. But I did have one concern about the compensation proposal, and it doesn't have anything to do with the lived experience person, but it has unintended consequences for other commissioners. So I just want to make sure that we're not, because of the budget impact, that we're not taking a look at this compensation for any other committee, that we're just looking at the individual of lived experience. Because if we start doing that, then people who serve on neighborhoods commission and every other commission, I mean, they're all donating their time too, and they may be on fixed income as well, that we're going to have to figure out a model that will benefit everyone. So just something to think about. And because we have the report coming tomorrow and this report today, I was a little confused in my head about which one I was supposed to be discussing. So I'm just going to throw that out today because I think that's part of this discussion. And actually, that's it for me. Councilmember Perales, did you have any other comment? Your hand is still raised.
Yes, I do. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, intermixing between trying to pay attention to my son and in the commentary here.
No worries.
But I wanted to just echo Councilmember Carrasco's comments, which I think are really, really important. If we, do a good job in regards to anti-displacement, and don't really go beyond that, then we can be helping people stay here, but we'll be helping them stay here in poverty. And if we can go a step further, right, and really be able to utilize that, because we know that being able to be stable in housing is that first step to actually try and then, better your life. And the next step, the more important one, right, is to actually own your own housing. And so many people in low-income families are not able to do that. And then ultimately are at the whim of whatever decisions other people may be making. And my wife and I, with our son as he was 6 months old, fell subject to that in a rental. No, I think ill will from our homeowners. They simply just were ready to sell, and then as they sold, we couldn't find anything else that was affordable and comparable, and we're out stuck looking. And as we all know, as council members, we're confined to a geographic area, and the availability at the time was really terrible. And when you're in that situation, and in our family, nobody on my side or my wife's side owns their home, and so we didn't. There wasn't that wealth being passed down, as we know our constituent Paul Soto liked to point out, right, in regards to, if you don't have that starting point from back in your history of your family history, you're already off to a disadvantage. And so if we can work with, as been told, right, or has been talked about here, in regards to partnerships on the not only business side but development side, right, and be able to get people into that pathway of actual ownership, however small it may be, to start out of a place, then they're not concerned about displacement anymore. And more importantly, they're now able to build wealth and equity. And I think one of the major challenges my wife and I had looked when we were looking for first time homebuyer down payment assistance, a lot of the programs don't allow you to build that equity. And that's not beneficial for somebody that wants to get into home ownership. If you're looking at, sort of paying that equity forward, that's great for the next person, but it doesn't help build that wealth for an individual themselves. And so that is also one of the struggles. But I just wanted to, I know as Councilmember Krosko pointed out, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about this at council, but I think that her points being made, just wanted to double down and highlight those. And thank you, Councilmember, for making those.
Yeah, if I could respond, just
go ahead, Kristen.
Just briefly, I think you all are pointing out the many challenges of running a home buyer program in our very expensive area. And you have that trade-off between allowing people to get equity out of the program, which is traditionally what we have had, right? We've had this equity share note where the city gets back some money and the owners get back some money at the time of sale. But you've spent $400,000 or $500,000 for that one household to get them in the house. And then when they sell, the affordability goes away completely. And now at the prices right now, I think as we were looking, I'm sure Councilmember Krosko is knowing, and Councilmember Foley watching the numbers. As of Q4, the median single family home sales price was $1,225,000, right? And condos are still more affordable. Yeah, I'm sure they've gone up. At this time, Class A rental weaker, really weak vacancies. You can just see how the different sectors move completely differently. It is the hottest for sale market like ever. Historically low rates, days on market, crazy low. And so, trying to get into that kind of market, that, what we can't do is subsidize individual families $900,000 per unit. We afford to help like 3 families, so, but you play with that, like, how do we make this program sustainable over time to help more people versus help people build equity? So it's a real challenge here.
I appreciate that, and I'll share with you a personal story. In many years ago, over 35 years ago, probably, I was in a duplex and we got an eviction notice. real nasty eviction notice, but anyway, it was an eviction notice. And so we started looking for real estate, and 35 years ago, property values were a lot different, but still it was a struggle because so was our income a lot different. We barely, we barely made any income. I was on a commission sales and I wasn't doing very well. Anyway, my mother-in-law had squirreled away some money, and she gave us the down payment. And my husband reminded me of that the other day, and because I had forgotten it. And this is 35 years ago. We never would have been able to afford it. We needed it, and it wasn't even, it was, less than $10,000 is what we needed to get into the house. And she lent it to us, and then she passed away. So the heirs forgave it, but still, we would not be where we are today if she didn't give us that leg up. And that's what Councilmember Krosko is talking about. That's what Councilmember Perales is. Somehow we need to help give our renters a leg up. Now, unfortunately, $10,000 isn't going to get anyone anywhere anymore, with a median price of closer to 1.4 million on a single family home in certain areas of the city, and more depending on where you live. It is ridiculous, and people are paying, 100, 200, 300,000 more than asking price. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, I won't belabor that because we will have a robust conversation next week, but that is how we stabilize rents and stabilize housing, is by helping people own the property that they live in or have some sort of ownership interest, whether it's an equity share or something. But we need to try and be creative and figure that out. With that, I will entertain a motion to accept the committee report, which includes cross-referencing to council March 30th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. If there are any further discussion on the motion, then please take the roll.
Krosko,
Aye.
Mahan,
Aye.
Perales,
Aye.
Foley.
Aye.
Thank you.
And that's the end of our formal agenda. This is time for open forum. So if any members of the public wish to speak on any item that does not appear on today's agenda, then now is the time to do so. We have, first is Paul Soto.
This is entitled The Dignity of the Farm Worker. For nearly all people, there is a thing that is more important than money. It is a thing called dignity or self-respect or honor, and it shows itself in many ways. Sometimes it is shown by the man who will fight when he is insulted. We who are the farm workers have all been insulted. We have seen ourselves treated like cattle. We have seen how they have taken the work of our hands and our bodies and made themselves rich, while we were left with empty hands between earth and the sky. We have seen our children treated as inferiors in the schools. We have seen in the face of the cop or our inequality before the law. We have known what it is like to be less respected, to be unwanted, to live in a world which did not belong to us. Our color or our language or our job have kept us apart. And the people who are profiting from our separateness are determined to keep it that way. It is the fact that in San Francisco, the grocers associations keep an office full of people who are busy writing propaganda about how the farm workers are all winos, bums, incompetents. There is money in the advancement of these lies. We who are picking the grapes and the peaches and the tomatoes, which are the lifeblood of California, are soon going to share in the richness we have made. The little fights against the little grower and contractor that you read about today are only the beginning. The dignity of the farm worker shows itself in many ways. This year and in the years to come, will be shown by the man who will fight when he is insulted. I come from this legacy. This is Si Puedes. And what created this particular piece of writing was the redlining policies that happened in the city. I have that lived legacy. I am a Chicano. I am not a Mexican immigrant. I'm a Chicano. I'm from San Jose. And what has been created with result of the redlining policies compelled this man to write this piece of writing that I share with you.
Thank you. Mr. Beekman.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beckman here. I'm trying to, thanks for your patience. I'm trying to learn to bridge together a few different ideas and concepts. To speak from my last words of previous public comment, new tax plans for apartment owners should offer a lot of comfort and allow renters space and time for rent increases to be limited at this time. Meanwhile, I'm guessing San Jose Local Community Energy, its garbage collection, and both San Jose and Valley Water departments may all be very possibly considering future questions of subsidy to help pay for their programs in the next few years. I hope everyday community and local government together can have an open, shared, constructive dialogue on different ways subsidies may or may not be considered in the next few years for these programs, and for everyone in San Jose to be allowed to consider all ideas, options, and choices for what may be difficult obstacles for San Jose and the SFA area in the next 5 to 10 years. In what Chief Anthony Mata is capable of working towards, I hope all sides of our community can work together towards important community changes. I think it would help the healing of our community to consider both openly and privately at this time exactly what was Deputy Chief Mata's role in decision-making at the time of the George Floyd riots last year, and to ask him what changes in SJPD protest policy he is learning to address from that time, and to ask the overall question, how can city government learn to make clear why Deputy Mata and his insider status was chosen for police chief compared to former assistant Pittsburgh police chief Leigh Serrato and his important outsider status. Thanks a lot for the meeting today. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Fernando Alvarez.
Thank you. My name is Fernando Alvarez, and I'm the founder of Vapor Tent Lounges. We are licensed by California's Bureau of Cannabis Control as a cannabis event organizer. And what that essentially means is that I can organize events that have legal sales and legal consumption of cannabis in a public or social setting. Now, we're based in San Jose. I was founded in 2014. We were the first business licensed in 2018, and I've been developing the social consumption policy across California, and perhaps one of the ones you heard of was the San Francisco Cannabis Event Pilot Program that led to Outside Lands Music Festival to become the first one in the United States to incorporate this bill. Through my networking and advocacy, there's significant demand for our vision of cannabis events and social consumption, but respectfully, we're not talking about the stigmatized FestCon Expo type of event that exists today. Under this new style of events, we have Grammy award-winning artists, executive chefs, comedians, film producers out of Hollywood that want to showcase their blockbuster movie. I've been asked to produce a major B2B cannabis event. I even have corporate interests from Silicon Valley from a team building and year-end party perspective. However, not a single one of them has suggested to me to produce this event in San Jose. And the reason is because we don't have a social consumption policy. So, just to recap, I've spoken to many of your council members. I just want to continue to advocate here from a community economic development standpoint that this wave is coming. We can produce events really no different than al fresco dining with outdoor alcohol sales. We could do the same, just replace the word alcohol with cannabis. And when we're talking about consumption, it doesn't always have to be combustion of the plant. There's edibles, there's vaporizers, there's infused drinks, etc. I would love nothing more than to bring these events to San Jose, and I'm reaching out to the community and economic development team to kind of highlight that, and would be happy to speak to anybody that's interested to learn more. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.